వసుధైవ కుటుంబకం.
Hi, everybody. It's Marcus again, and I'm sitting here with Dr. AnnRene Joseph. And we just discovered one another a few weeks ago, actually, because we were part of a conference together. And I was chatting to her, and she's a musician, and she's been involved in arts education all her career. Recently retired, she tells me. Is that right, AnnRene? Sorry.
I retired in 2011 to complete my doctorate.
To complete your doctorate. Okay. Yeah. So not so recently retired, something that I aspire to. And I'm also really keen and pleased that AnnRene has given me her time, a little bit of slice of her life, because she's also a woman of faith. And I was very interested, given that this is the 12th one of these talks, that we actually have someone talk directly to a faith tradition. And I think it's really important, as you probably know from having heard me rattle on often about the role that faith traditions play in meaning and purpose in life. And of course, I think they have a powerful role to play in the future. So, is there any, I'm just trying to think of the biodata you sent me, AnnRene. Have I forgotten anything really significant? I'll hand it over to you. I'll give you what we in Australia call the talking stick. So you can hold the talking stick and you can tell us about, first of all, just a little bit about yourself. The things that I obviously didn't touch on in any way. You're in choirs and all sorts of stuff, aren't you? So, were you a professional singer as well as an educator?
Yes, still am. Thank God. It was always my dream. Thank you, Marcus, first of all, for inviting me to be a part of your interview. I want to say your interview class that you're doing. It's wonderful. And also to allow me to talk about the arts and faith and hope. It's very exciting. And thank you. It's been a pleasure to meet you and to get to know you. I'm in the business of enhancing lives via the arts, learning, and leadership. Always have been. Since I was 7, I wanted to sing and play the piano and get paid for it. And my father said, "That's great, but you need to make a living doing that because I'm not going to take care of you." And so that became my prayer. And the Lord opened up all of those doors. It was hard work, of course, but I was a music teacher and a theater teacher my entire career before becoming a school administrator and a state administrator for the arts in Washington State. So it has really been a blessed life. And then when I retired to complete my doctorate, my dissertation is about creative dramatics and language arts, making that interconnectedness, but also not just measuring language arts, but measuring all 4 of the arts in that process in an empirical study. And so that's been my work since then with More Arts LLC. And I'm in the business
we've frozen.
Enhancing lives via the arts, learning, and leadership using biblical principles and promises. And I think that's where you were interested. Is how does that
kind of intersection is really interesting to me. So you talked about the connectivity in your little introduction then. Can you frame that within the question of how do you understand global citizenship? I'm going to be driving this with these questions, AnnRene, simply because we've got about 15 to 20 minutes. So I try to keep these reasonably short. So I'm just letting you know that I'll barge in sometimes if I'm looking at the clock. Because I know that we could talk for a long time. And I think some other point we should set aside some time to do that. But right now, global citizenship. Tell us, give us your take, please.
Thank you. And I appreciate you sending that question ahead of time. And global citizenship for me is exactly what we referenced, what you just referenced back, paraphrasing me, that connectivity that we have. Like what a miracle it is that right now that you and I are talking to one another. You're in Australia and I'm in Washington State in the United States of America. How does that happen? And then the connectivity is how could that even happen? So the faith piece comes in for me where number one, you and I were both on the Seattle Pacific University Symposium. And our connectivity there was because of Dr. Ellis. And for you 15 years ago, for me, even longer than that. And then he became my doctoral advisor, but I still feel very honored every time that I get invited to participate in one of his symposiums, which has connected me to the world. And Seattle Pacific University did that. What are the odds? And each time that, and I don't believe in odds or luck, I believe in faith, and I believe in divine encounters, and I believe in the Lord ordering my steps. And how does that happen that we even come into contact with these people? And then I reached out to you, like I reached out to a lot of people when we're on those symposiums and conferences, strangers. This, you just reach out with a hello, how are you? That was interesting. And then you replied back. Well, I believe that was supposed to happen. And then here we are today. So when you talk about global citizenship, that's what it means to me. And we're all children. I keep going back to that song. Everything is, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world.
Yeah.
And so when you first posed that question to me, I thought, that's it. And as a music teacher for entire student body populations, as a principal for entire schools and in student body populations, and in a district administrator as an administrator for entire district populations, and then as a state administrator for an entire state's population with regards to the arts, 1.6 million at the time of my retirement. That allowed me to have access globally. And this pandemic, as awful as it was, with Zoom, as opposed to webinars that we used to have, has made it even better in a sense, and also helped us to not be exhausted in the process. We all work 24/7 in our passions. So we have time to actually have a little bit of balance around ourselves and a little bit more selectivity, perhaps, of saying yes or no. I find I've been much healthier and much more balanced, and I'm learning so much more. It has been, I feel like I've been in college the last 2 years. Only when you talk about, I love how your question, global citizenship, more connectivity with people from around the world as all the conferences were canceled, where we were able to continue to meet like this at all hours of the day and night, and share our research afterwards with and prepare better than we've ever prepared before in new ways that we'd never prepared before. And then, like this class that you have, you sent me all of these links, and you took me all over the world with the people that you have interviewed. That's kind of a long answer to that question, but those, you asked me for specific examples, and I wanted to give you those examples that really you've been a part of, that perhaps your students can relate to. And then everything, of course, was synchronous or asynchronous or remote for a long time. We didn't even know what was Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was before the pandemic. And now today, this is the second Zoom I've been on. The first one was in Italy, and this one is in Australia. So that's a wow. That is my global citizenship.
It's like a passport to the world, isn't it? Coming through and out.
Yes.
I was as I told you, I was in Seattle 15 or 16 years ago, something like that. It's a beautiful part of the world. The natural beauty outside of the Seattle city itself is quite extraordinary. You've got all those mountains, you've got the waterfalls coming out of the mountains and all that. Are you very urban, or are you a person who goes to nature to renew? That's an interesting question. I know you will sing in a choir and that will renew, but I was just, because of, I don't know, something just had provoked me to ask that question, AnnRene.
Well, right. It's a wonderful question. I live in a forest. My husband and I live in Woodinville, Washington, which is considered very rural in the Seattle area. It's 21 miles northeast of Seattle. And it looks, we're driving in the country. We live in a horse acre, on a horse acre, most of these, and in an older subdivision. And we have horse trails around us. So we see horses all the time, and some people even have lots of pets out here. And they have a lot of land. So you don't necessarily see the houses that are next door to you, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And I taught and was a principal in the Riverview School District just prior to going to the state in 2001. And so from 1995 to 2001, I was even in a more, what we would call a remote school district. In other words, you have to be going there to get there. It's not off the interstate. And that was even more remote than where I live. So I love it. And I grew up in Walla Walla, Washington, which is a farming community.
Yeah.
Now a wine community. And the destination also what we would call a rural and remote school district. And so they were urban. Your question was urban. I live in, they would call it rural suburb.
Yep. Okay. I do the same. I live in a rural suburb, so there's another affinity there. That's fantastic. So, with this vision that you've given us of how you understand and appreciate global citizenship, where does optimism come in, and how do you nurture that?
Thank you for asking that. And the optimism for me comes through my faith, of course. I have great hope in mankind, and I have greater hope in my God. And then, of course, more arts. After prayer, people say, what should I do? First of all is pray. And after prayer is more arts. And I believe that all of us were born to dance, sing, act, create, make music, and play. And then life happened. And what I help people do is to bring the artistic processes of creating, performing, presenting, and responding to individuals, to groups, schools, businesses, corporations, and anyone who wants to talk about how they can be their best self. And I believe that is through seeing what we do through an artistic lens, by creating, performing, presenting, responding, producing. We're born to do that, and imagining, and those are the artistic processes, but people don't think that way. It's like something wonderful happens and they think, how did that happen? What did I do? I like your wonderful, even you're out of office. So you were out of office for having COVID, but it said, and here's some music to listen to. And you had this nice 14-minute wonderful string piece for us to listen to. And I was captivated. And then as watching your videos of the other people who you're interviewing, you start with chimes. You immediately captivate us to hum along with that, which activates the vagal nerve. And so we're immediately calm and soothed. And then you played a song, It's a Wonderful World.
Yeah.
And which has, that's that global citizenship that you talk about. It is a wonderful world. And I think that when we view it that way, that's the hope. I view everything as the glass half full, and also as how am I going to seize my days and enjoy heaven on earth? And that's really up to me. And that's how I see it. And what does the Bible say about that? So people are always, we're always involved in controversy every day, but the way that I keep myself centered is, what does the Bible say about that? And I ask myself that question. And that's my solid foundation. It keeps me moving forward with the mission that I feel that I have. God wants me to bring the arts to people. That's my strength. I know what my strength is, as well as education, as well as leadership. And that leaves the door wide open, yet that's a lot of hard work too. That was a lot of hard work.
Yes, it's solid.
Like you do history, and I love history. And when you ask me about global citizenship, I see the arts as that connectivity, the arts as the arts connect us, the music, the costuming, the traditions, the food. We can go anywhere in the world, the colors, the practices of cultures. Most cultures are much more artistic than the United States. They've been around a lot longer.
Yeah.
And you're dancing in the streets. They're singing in the streets. And I do that. I was going to send you a picture of me singing in the street because someone said to me, I can't sing. I was in New York, was where our son lives in New Jersey. So we go there quite often. And that's where the Hope picture is too. And I just started singing. The person, I said, just match my pitch. And my husband captured a picture of this person, in New York. It's like sardines in there. And she was singing to me, a total stranger. She matched my pitch and she walked off skipping. And that's what,
Fantastic. You're making me remember I was in mainland China, 2018, I think it was. And that they do a lot of dancing in the streets, especially Tai Chi oriented dancing and so on. And I do a dance method called interplay. And I just went up and joined into them. They were astonished. There are these people up to my chest because I'm a tall person. Yes. But we had so much fun. It was a delight. And of course, no language. It was just we were moving in a way that just felt right. Yeah.
And I know you're interviewing me, but I wanted to ask you, how did you feel after that happened? And you're still sharing that with me. And how many years ago was that?
I felt elated. I mean,
yes,
using one's body. I'm a musician too. I'm a guitarist and a classical guitarist particularly, and Spanishy sort of stuff. But, when I do those things, it changes my whole vibration. It's kind of like, if you're a neurologist, you'd say, there's this hormone, endorphin or whatever it might be that's coming through. But, there's something else. I see our hormones as a channel to being more open to what the universe, cosmos, divinity, whichever language we want to use, it's there. And it's kind of like, just like that. It's like this deep sigh runs through you. And so I can relate.
We're born, that's right. See, and we're born to dance, sing, act, create, make music, and play. We're born to do that. But spontaneity that you're talking about it's like freedom. It's like popping a pimple. That doesn't sound very good, but it's just like letting
a horrible metaphor.
I know, but it's great. But it's great relief. It's great relief. It's that and I wanted to ask you what type of a musician you were. So I'm really glad you shared that with me, and I'll do this on this, this recording. I would love to have you accompany me. I mean, you're a classical guitarist, so, let me know, what do you want to play? And that I could sing. I think that would be really fun. And I won't even charge you.
Okay, thank you so much. I've got you recorded, so I have you. This is so you're you can't back down from that one. So there's a couple of things that I'd like, I guess, as we sort of draw this to a close, this conversation, I'd like to touch on. One is, of course, that you referenced the Bible quite extensively a few minutes ago. There's a lot of singing and dancing in the Bible.
Yes.
Okay, so there's that there which affirms some aspects of what you were telling us. There's also the question of aesthetics per se, because I'm very much a culturalist. I commented when we talked that I love the Van Gogh behind you, and I've got all this stuff behind me. And so there's a deep pleasure and a life-affirming nature to aesthetics.
Yes.
And if you could say something about, I in a sense, I'm touching on two things there. There's the biblical stuff about dance and music, and there's the aesthetics. I don't know, just if you could just respond with whatever comes to your mind, AnnRene, that would be great.
You're very kind. I want to tie that into this conversation and what you're teaching, in that every culture can be taught through the arts. So
Yep.
as we make this connection, and the cultures that have been around for a really long time, much longer than the United States, we see them telling about their culture through the arts, ars longus, vita brevis.
Mhm.
But, and you're exactly right about the aesthetics, is that when we go to other countries, it's the artwork of that country, what it looks like, the environment, the topography, the art, the traditions of the native peoples, the costuming, the celebrations, the food, everything that encompasses our senses of sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch
Yep.
involves the arts. And that's what we remember, the color. You and I are, and you can see, so here we are, you had this background at the symposium, I had this background at the symposium. Of course, I was drawn to that.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's Picasso in your background or not, but it sure looks like it, or it could be something ancient to its Aboriginal art.
Yeah.
You immediately recognized this piece, and I appreciate it. You're a professor. There are some people who would think I have been finger painting behind
That's what
me.
you said.
Yeah. And that's fine too. And because it still captured them. And after you and I get off of this recording, I'm going to remember that you had art and books, and you showed me books in the background. You're going to remember this color, and that I had the Van Gogh. What is it that we do that causes people to remember their encounter with us? And again, that goes back to your question of that global citizenship. How is it that we can connect with one another? We connected through our music. We connected through art. We connect as professors. We connect through research. We connect through history. I'm a second generation American of Lebanese extraction. I'm very proud to be an American. We connect through nature. We connect through our studies, through our professor, Dr. Ellis, and through the symposium of other researchers being willing to get up at all hours of the day and night and share their research with one another. That's commitment to connectivity and to honoring the peoples of the world. Historically, you do that. The history is fascinating. I've always said I can teach history. I can teach everything through the arts, with and through the arts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the costuming, especially, of what each, what each culture, what defines each culture. And when I go back to that, there is always a faith, and there are arts and traditions and food, but typically for me, it has been the music. And I really wanted to get back to that. You and I just talked about that, whether you're dancing or acting or experiencing or whatever, like immediately on your recording, you had music immediately. You had chimes. So for a person like myself, I was drawn to that. You drew me into relaxing tones. And then you drew me in, you had an English song, so that was nice, but it doesn't matter if I sing in any language, like most people do. We learn the cultural songs that are tradition and passed down from generation to generation. And then going back to what you say about the Bible, it's all of the scriptures that talk about music and singing. I will dance and sing my whole life long, basically. And that's what I'm called to do. The only time I've ever been depressed in my life is when I had laryngitis and when I couldn't sing. So that God has helped me. Psalm 104:33 is one of my favorites, about I will sing my whole life long. Basically, I'm summarizing that. Sing and make music to the Lord. And so for me, it's worship. my life is just
That's
worship.
yes, yeah. And I think that's a great way to end, because really, you know, I have to speak for myself now, looking at my books and my life, it is,
Yes.
you know, and you can be very secular and still be worshipful.
Absolutely.
So it to me, there's the, you know, I think that there's a high point. So, you know, Renee, and Renee, I keep wanting to call you Renee for some unknown reason. I was correcting myself beforehand, before we started. Yeah, to remember, I think connectivity is a kind of typical technological word. What we're really talking about is relationality, right? We're in a relationship. I felt I recognize you, you recognize me relationally. And I think we've got to put a lot of emphasis on that global relationality. So we actually have a relationship with nature, with the sun, the light, the stars, the moon. Had a wonderful full moon here the other day. Yeah, it was just singing, to use that metaphor.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know, so for me to end on this concept of worship is perfect, and Renee. So thank you so much for giving us your time and your wisdom.